Hey, how you guys doing? It's time for your whatever weekly, bi-weekly, tri-weekly, however, whenever I find the time to put aside to work on this. Reading from some GI zines from back in the day. We're gonna add a little bit too. I figured we're not doing the podcast over the holiday. Nate and I are taking a break, as everybody should be if you can. So we're taking a break and we're releasing some bonus stuff for free, some older bonus stuff. So we're not really commenting on what's like going on currently in the news. So this is kind of an opportunity for me to hit some of these things, and hopefully I'm going to start being able to talk about these things in between podcasts, and maybe to expound upon points and things like that. Basically, I just want to give you guys more YouTube content. I want everybody to stare directly into my face as I talk to them for 10 to 12 minutes until we get up to like the 3 hours of me just screaming into a microphone, which is eventually what happens to every YouTuber. So I'm looking forward to it. Enjoy my descent into madness. So the first thing we're going to go ahead, we're going to talk about a couple things. You can see we have fancy pop-ups over here. I don't have the new stuff at the bottom. We're only going to talk about a couple things. Nashville, obviously, really fucked up. This has been interesting to watch because like Christmas, there was no discussion around it. I mean, some people were obviously because a fucking RV blew up in a major metropolis on Christmas Day, but it's so weird, and there's like warnings and everything, and there's like no way that anybody should be able to have enough like explosive material to do something like this, and somehow this still managed to go off. I tell you also that I saw a lot of the veterans online that I follow get real fucking just like, it's, you got to assume every car in Iraq was going to blow up. Like there's just you have to live in that reality. So to have it be that that any car back at home might blow up is going to be fun. And this is not without precedent. In St. Louis back in the 70s, we were very everybody loves to talk about the New York mobs or the Boston mob, but St. Louis still has a little Italy. St. Louis very heavily Italian, very mob connected in a lot of ways. We had bombings, we had car bombings. I think two of them in the city back in the 70s. The leisure. So so car bombs, nothing new to some of us. However, real fucked up. Nobody wants that. So let's really. There's been a lot of fucking speculation. Obviously, nobody knows anything. So while it's fun to do all of the conspiracy theory shit in your DMs, just keep it there, and also just understand that whatever your fevered brain is coming up with probably isn't what happened there. Let's see, and I also wanted to talk. Yeah, so the cheating scandal of the cadets. One of my like, uh, look, we love to make fun of West Point. We love to make fun of all military officers in general, but especially West Pointers, because West Pointers are like really up their own asses. Like that they belong in the military more than somebody else. Like that's how it always seemed to me. Like you didn't, you plebs didn't go to the military school, the school of military, the school of war that I did while I learned, got English, an English degree or whatever the fuck you get at West Point. So we have like 73 students caught cheating on a calculus test. And it's one of those like, I mean, cheating's wrong, obviously. And as in the military, they've taught us, you're only cheating yourself. And if you're cheating, is it because are you lazy? Which if you are, then you shouldn't be there in the first place. Like if you just don't want to do the work, do you not understand it? Which if you don't understand it, then you should do something to better understand it. And like you can fix either one of those, either do tutoring or get the fuck out of college. So I don't understand why they would, but I also don't really give a fuck. Like they cheated on a calculus test. It's not. I'm not a person who's going to say that somebody is more or less going to be a shitty officer because they cheated on a test that I would probably cheat on too because I was fucking terrible at calculus. So I don't hold a whole lot of grudge against the West Pointers. There's a lot of people who do. There's a lot of that, they should be expelled. They should be, dishonorably discharged because they cheated on a calculus test. And while I would absolutely love to believe that the military is, some bastion of, just being better and more honorable people, it's not at all. It's full of people. People are assholes. I'm sorry to tell you. So I don't care. I don't care that they cheated. If I was still in and I was going to come across one of these, I would think that they're a fucking idiot regardless because they'd be a second lieutenant. It's too easy. Anybody else beyond then, oh man, everybody's cheated, so I can't get mad at it. But also, just fucking tone your shit down if you're going to be real mad at these people, because you're real up your own ass. And the Army's been taking a lot of fucking L's lately. Just all, from Fort Hood, I'm talking before the Fort Hood report, all the shit that was happening at Fort Hood, and then we read about it in the report. We've been taking a lot of hits lately. So, this isn't all that bad, honestly. I'll tell you what, it could have been worse. We could have been the Navy. We could have had our own Fat Leonard. All right, so those are the two things that I kind of wanted to cover today. Let's go ahead and jump into our reading for today. So more of Up Against the Bulkhead. Let me put this mouse down. Take a sip of water. So for those of you just now joining us in these videos, excuse me, during the Vietnam War, because a lot of people were drafted and they were not voluntarily in the military, there was a lot of resistance to the war, especially in the ranks. So people would get drafted, they'd be forced to join the military, but they'd be anti-war and they'd be doing what they could to, basically turn the military against its officers. So there's a lot of underground leftist zines, especially in California, because that's where, around the San Diego area, because that's where one of the basically the biggest naval base in the United States, I think. That's where all the aircraft carriers are, so it's fucking huge. So during Vietnam, a lot of protests, and a lot of the protests centered around the military, of radicalizing people in the military and getting them to be anti-war. So these are all zines, and I'm just kind of reading from the zines, and this is Up Against the Bulkheads. This is a one that started in 1970 and was distributed around the Bay Area. So, excuse me. This is U.S. War on Coffeehouses. Which side are you on? Ever since the rebellion at the Fort Dix stockade last summer, the military brass, with all the aid of the local, state, and federal authorities, has stepped up its campaign to wipe out all the progressive GI forces. Needless to say, General Admiral Nixon and his henchmen, Mitchell, Lorade, etc., on the side of the conspirators are actually the real forces behind the conspiracy to exterminate the GI movement. Although this combination of criminals has at various times moved against individuals who have resisted, most of the repression has come down to the various coffeehouse projects near military bases or headquarters for the active GI organizations. So all the places that Jacob Wohl was overhearing all the liberals being scared of Republicans, that's what was going on. Jacob Wohl just keeps showing up to the CIA-fronted ones, and that's why that's all he hears. In early December, the brass decided that it wanted to place the shelter half near Fort Lewis, Tacoma, Washington, off limits to servicemen. Shelter half, I think, was the name of a bar. Which, guess what? There's a lot of bars that are off limits to troops because, Shelter Half is a coffee house. So you will get, there will be places that they don't want soldiers to go to now because they're, brothels, or they're just places where soldiers get stabbed and robbed all the time. They don't want you around those places. So they'll consider those places off limits. Apparently, back in Vietnam, they would just do coffee houses because that's where all the communism happened. National publicity and support campaign was waged in the coffee house staff. The Army, due due to the people's pressure, decided to halt its investigations indefinitely on alleged subversive activities in the coffee house. At the Fort Knox Coffee House in Muldrow, Kentucky, 6 of the staff, people who were indicted for maintaining a public nuisance of all of its good at the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and violating sanitary conditions. So that's what the military came down on them, the coffee house, with that. Bail was set at $10,000. The grand jury started an investigation of FTA, the GI paper. Which one was that? That's now it could be like the legitimate GI paper. I don't know what FTA is. They don't. Zines really need copy editors. Like a zine really needs somebody who like is radical leftist and also follows the AP style guide, because sometimes this can be a little confusing, especially 50 years forward. When staff people refused to answer questions for them, were jailed, and there have been raps on black literature at the San Diego State College. The last weekend, Jane Fonda talked with the GIs about her latest experience with the brass up in the state of Washington. On April 17th and 18th, Preacher Man from the Patriot Party will be here to rap with GIs. Patriot Party, maybe the Patriot Party back then wasn't a bunch of like shitty bikers that wanted to kill Mexicans or something. Preacher Man from the Patriot Party will be here to rap with the GIs. All these activities must be telling the brass something about the determination of GIs. This will make them more and more desperate in their attempts to crush MDM. General Chapman, Commandant of the Marines, has in the press conference made it quite clear that he was declaring internal war against the movement for a democratic military. So movement for a democratic military is something we talked about last time we did one of these. And it's kind of like it's not giving people in the military a right to vote on what they do, but it's giving like the people a right to vote. So like the idea is that it wants, rather than just letting Congress decide what the military is going to go do, the people get to go vote. So it's like, hey, let's all vote. Does this, ship go? Will this ship go to Vietnam? Yes or no? We're all going to, vote on it. Probably not the best way to go about it. But what do I know, man? Hey, these are radical ideas during a radical time. All right. So somebody who goes in for contempt of court, bail was set at $1,500 a person. The state police came into the coffee house every night for 3 weeks, demanding names of the people in the coffee house. The grand jury is set to resume its investigation. The Fort Dix coffee house near Fort Dix, New Jersey, got bombed, Jesus, and when the police came in to investigate, they proceeded to smash things up in the name of looking for clues. The Oleo Strut coffee house near the Fort Hood, Killeen, Texas, has been the target of vigilantes of the Ku Klux Klan type. Fort Hood, man, even back then. Racist as shit. Last fall, the staff of many active duty GIs were headed for the anti-imperialist rally in Houston. Some of them never did make that rally. They were on 2 occasions attacked with firearms by the Klan. They found out later the Klan had taken credit for the crime. Fortunately, the shots only hit one of the cars. 2 GIs from Fort Hood, who were organizers, have received hefty jail sentences. The first editor of the local GI paper called Fatigue Press got 8 years on a framed dope bust. Jesus. He served 1.5 years in jail before a higher court overturned the conviction. In January 1970, the civilian class staff of the UFO coffee house near Fort Jackson, Columbia, South Carolina, was busted and charged with operating a public nuisance. Bail was set at $7,500 for the men, $6,000 for the women. She is pregnant. For this crime, these staff people faced possible 10 years in jail. 2 days later, the UFO was padlocked by state officials. A notice stating that the UFO was being closed by a temporary restraining order on the grounds that it was a public nuisance and placed in the window. So that's what they would just go through and claim it a public nuisance and close down coffee houses. The home front near Fort Carson, Colorado Springs, has FBI pressure interfering with its efforts. July 1969, the landlord of the original coffee house broke the lease the day after being visited by the FBI. December 11th, 1969, FBI and military intelligence visited the offices of Peerless Graphics, the Colorado Springs printer for Above Ground, the GI paper. A contract had been made to publish the newspaper. The type had already been set for the issue. The next day, the printer broke the contract, and subsequently, no printer in Colorado Springs would agree to publish above ground. So the Army is basically the fucking mob. Jesus. The Green Machine the Green Machine Coffee House Project Fund found a place in Oceanside, California, near Camp Pendleton. But the day before the lease was to be signed, the landlord backed down. So now they operate out of their home in Vista. It has since November been the headquarters for the Camp Pendleton chapter of the Movement for the Democratic Military. So basically they're trying to organize in the Starbucks, and the Starbucks keep getting closed, and everybody goes to jail for being a nuisance. Vigilantes, God, it makes you think, man, about some of that freedom of the press stuff that's happening now, where it's like, gee, the Army was literally going in and shutting down organizations like this just because they were a nuisance. Fucking nuts. Vigilantes have taken shots at the place. Vigilantes have taken shots at the place, and undercover pigs have constantly been found trespassing. The waiting room, San Diego headquarters for the MDM, has practically been under siege by local and military pigs. The MDM headquarters have been broken into on at least 4 occasions up to this date. Since late December, at least 50 GIs, all members of the MDM, have been ripped off. Most of these charges have been dropped, since no evidence could be found to constitute a violation. Seaside, California, near Fort Ord, the Fort Ord Coffee House has only been in existence for 6 weeks, but already it's received its taste of justice. The police have been encouraging a group of bikers to start trouble so they can close the place down. The tactic has so far been unsuccessful, but there have been some close calls. The coffee house at Fort Ord is also serving as lodging for the newly formed chapter of the Fort Ord MDM. All the coffee houses in general serve as places where GIs can learn more about the movement, read underground literature, start their own papers, and build their own movements. This is what the brass calls subversive. So be it. So, yeah, that's, coffee houses during Vietnam. Apparently coffee houses have always been the place where radical revolutionaries hang out. I don't know why it's not the bar. Maybe because if you get really drunk, it's hard to start a revolution when you're shit-faced, I guess. I don't know. But when you're jacked up on coffee, maybe it's a little bit easier. So, these, coffee houses. As I've been saying, I've been reading, I didn't even really, I go through these and make sure that the transcriptions from the papers are clean, that, all the words are figured out and everything, but I don't actually read through it until here. And I should start I'm going to start reading these beforehand and trying to do a little bit more research, because I'm going to look into coffee houses during Vietnam and some of these other underground newspapers. The Fatigue Press, that sounds fantastic. I also like, how military progressives continue to have a sense of humor. So everybody, thank you for jumping on and watching this. As you know, we run a podcast, What a Hell of a Way to Die. You can subscribe to us on Patreon, but we have a free episode every week. So please feel free to, like, comment, subscribe, share. As I said, this is me trying to get back onto YouTube. Hopefully I'm not too old and dying for it. And if I'm not, then I'm sure just being on YouTube will do it for us. Thanks, and I'll talk to you guys later.